Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another edition of the Spurs Chat podcast. In this edition, we'll be talking about Tottenham's 1-1 draw against Fulham. We're live on X, we're live on Facebook and, of course, YouTube. So please do get involved. Let us know how you are feeling right now as a Tottenham Hotspur fan. As per usual, I've got three very special guests to talk about today's game. Back with us is channel regular Craig Dearman. Craig, how are you?
Yeah, probably the same as everyone else. Not good. Game we should have won. So, yeah, Scott. Yes, frustrated. Yes, continually frustrated.
Back with us also, all the way from Singapore, is Dustin Lau. Dustin, how are you?
It was great. I had my favorite meal today because I'm about to go on a long trip. So I had that for dinner. I was watching the game over dinner, and now it's completely ruined.
Yeah, I know how you feel. And back with us is Daily Mirror journalist Ollie Gamp. Ollie, how are you?
Very good, thank you, Chris. Great to be back. Not great to be discussing another disappointing result. Feels a little bit like Groundhog Day. We win, we lose, we win, we lose. We drop points. I was there on Thursday night as well. We dropped points again as well in the last minute. It's a disappointing time, but what can you do?
It is disappointing, Ollie. But when you look at the last few results, Manchester City, of course, we beat them 4-0, 2-2 against Roma, 1-1 today. I know they're not the results that we want, but we haven't lost in the last three. It is frustrating. A number of fans booed at the end of the game today against Fulham. What are your overall thoughts on today's game? Because a lot of people expected Spurs to win. You know, if you want to be fighting in those top four positions, you've got to be winning these sorts of games, haven't you?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you looked at the team and you thought Fulham, they're kind of there to be beaten. We all made jokes before the game. I kind of thought we'd lose. Not seriously, just told a couple of friends of mine, no, we're going to lose because we lost to Ipswich, we beat Man City. It would be obvious if we lost. The fact that we didn't lose is almost a positive, considering everything that's happened. Considering we lost to Palace, we lost to Brighton. I was almost just relieved that we didn't lose because it kind of just resets that horrible run we've been on after such a big win. But no, it's really disappointing. My overall feeling is that we had a lot of players missing. I'm just really disappointed that we went so strong against Roma. I was there before the game listening to the team, and I thought, we started Solanke, we started Kulusevski, Johnson, pretty much the same back line, apart from Udogie wasn't there. I think we had Archie Gray, actually. But to hear that Solanke's injured before the game because he played against Roma, it's just really disappointing. I mean, I know we need to secure the points in the Europa League, but I really think we should have gone stronger today. I said to a guy I went to the game with against Roma, I said, I don't really care if we lose to Roma. I'd rather we beat Fulham and put all our eggs in that basket. So it was kind of predictable, and I just don't really see. It's very entertaining, sure, for the neutral, but for the Spurs fan, it's just living in this never-ending time loop of torture, and it's just getting a bit frustrating. Really, I don't really know where we go from here. We got Chelsea next. The odds are we go and turn them over somehow, even though they always turn us over. It's just you never really know what you're going to get, and it's a difficult watch, really. So
we've got Bournemouth away first on Thursday night, and then Chelsea. Another tough week coming up. I tell you, games are coming thick and fast. They really are.
Yeah.
Craig, let's get your thoughts on today's game, because I tell you what, I'm coming away from the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium again today. Exactly, very similar feeling to Thursday. Feeling disappointed, and it's not nice to keep hearing the fans keep booing the team, booing Ange Postecoglou as they did again today.
Yeah, it's just like, as Ollie said, it's the consistency. How many times have we used that word on here? Consistency. And I know we've got a myriad of injuries and players out for one reason and another, but with all due respect to Fulham, we should be beating Fulham, even if you haven't got 5 or 6 of your first choice or strongest 11 out there. Just a weird sort of game today. The atmosphere seemed a bit flat as well.
There wasn't any.
We looked leggy at times. No, we looked leggy at times. Not many of our players just, were much more than a 6.5. Just poor performances all over the pitch. There is no other word. And I said to myself I wasn't going to use the word frustrating today, but I don't know what else to say about it. It's becoming all too familiar sort of situation, isn't it? And the likes of yourself, who's there every week, horrible weather as well. Probably a load of traffic around on the roads as well. As a whole experience is not very good at the moment, is it? And like you say, Chris, we've got a shockingly hard week coming up. And people say Bournemouth are a good side. That is going to be a tough game. And Chelsea, we all know what they've done to us in the past. So this was a must win today to just keep touch, because again, the annoying thing is it was a chance to climb the table a little bit, and we've blown it again, haven't we? So yeah, very, very frustrating.
Craig, can I ask you about the excuse that people keep using? Well, we've got a lot of injuries. How do you stand on that excuse about injuries? Because let's face it, and let's be honest about it, every Premier League team has injuries. How many times did we say in the summer transfer window that we need a little bit more depth? I think we are virtually at the bare bones at the moment. Even Sergio Reguilon, we'll come to talk about the starting 11 in a minute and the subs, but even Sergio Reguilon was on the bench today. Yeah,
it all comes down to recruitment. Look, we have been unlucky, without a doubt, with injuries. But as you say, all clubs have injuries. We've probably had the most players missing in total when you add them all up. I did see that statistic. But if you've got a strong squad, and we've had 3 windows to get this right now, if you've got a strong squad where the standard isn't dipping when you lose perhaps a Solanke or whatever, then that you're kind of halfway there. You've won half the battle. It doesn't help at the moment, if I'm honest, losing Solanke before the game and Richarlison being out. And obviously you didn't want to start Lancashire for one reason or another. So that doesn't help when you've got no centre forward, because Son is never a centre forward. I've said it on here many times, and he just didn't look like a centre forward today, more so than ever. And our wingers, we're down to the bare bones with our wingers, aren't we? And then Kulusevski obviously going into the false 9 because we've got nobody to play there. Doesn't help. Really doesn't help. More work to be done in January. Again, they've got to bring in reinforcements in January, because we can't carry on like this. We've seen, come this time of year, it happened around the same time last year. What happened? Exactly the same thing. And our form around the Christmas period really dipped. This year, it's even more important because we're still in the cup. We're in the quarter-final. We've got that in a few weeks. The way Manchester United are playing at the moment, don't fancy that game. Tough games coming up over Christmas. Quick succession games, like it always is. It's going to be difficult. Really is difficult. Really worries me, actually.
Yeah, nine games in December, starting with today. As I said, games are coming thick and fast. Dustin, let's come to you. Let's get your thoughts on today's 1-1 draw.
I think I'm going to use a similar word that Craig used, which is frustrating. I think that once you look at the lineup and you see that Solanke is not there, you instantly start to worry, because if you have Son there, he isn't a central striker. He's not strong in the air. So it means that one particular option for attacking doesn't exist. It means that there are less scenarios that the opposition has to prepare themselves for, meaning that they can focus on shepherding us to the side because we're not scared of you crossing. It means that Son is not on the wing and it's Werner, and they worry about different profile. They don't worry about Son switching there, because if he switches there, who goes in the center? They don't have to worry about those situations. So I think that a big part of losing Solanke was also losing his pressing. And when you're against a team like that, a big part of it is being able to press the center back so that they don't have an opportunity to build out from the back. So when you lose Solanke's pressing in combination with Son and Johnson, then you're in a situation where it's easier for the opposition to play out from. And I think that it boils down to, this is a season where everyone is encountering tons of injuries. Even Man City have lots of players out. So we have a threadbare squad already. And the situation that's hit every team in the league has hit us, and it's hit us particularly hard. However, I will say it's because we are suffering from rebuilding squads we built for Conte and Mourinho. and players that we couldn't ship from those squads. And that's why the rebuild has taken so long, because we don't have enough club trained players, we don't have enough like homegrown players. So it's not being able to sell players to be able to get players in to provide adequate depth. It says everything that Reguilon is still on our books, and that's part of the problem. When we build a squad with a specific manager and style, and then suddenly we change our style completely. So I think that what the club needs to do from a recruitment perspective is decide on a style of play irrespective of the manager. So even if we change the manager, we're not having to ship a whole bunch of players for, like, the three in the back that Conte used to play. We've been shipping players out and trying to get those players out the door so that we can actually do a proper rebuild. And we're still trying to rebuild.
Dustin, whilst walking back to the car, I always think it's interesting when I hear overhear conversations of people walking back to the station or the car, and you hear little bits here and there. And a lot of people were criticising Ange Postecoglou today, as well as a number of the players. Are you still fully on board with Ange Postecoglou and what he's doing at the football club?
I am on board with what Ange is doing, not completely. No coach is perfect. There are elements of what he's doing that needs to adapt a little bit, but I do think that overall he has the right idea. He doesn't have the right support or the squad in place. And for example, the substitution for Kulusevski should have happened earlier. Literally, once Kulu came on, the threat from Iwobi evaporated, because if Iwobi had to defend Kulu, or the entire side had to help to defend Kulu, because Kulu is a player that the entire team needs to double team or need to cover. So the threat that we had from conceding the goal was actually a switch from the right flank to the left, and Iwobi had tons of space. Once Kulusevski is on, that threat doesn't exist, but that substitution came after the goal. He was already warming up before that. If he had made that change earlier, Iwobi's threat is reduced, because he now has to worry about Kulusevski going down the flank. He doesn't have as much support. He doesn't have the left back doesn't have the space to support him as well. So I think that substitutions need to happen earlier. He needs to adapt faster. But overall, when you look at all of the other things that Ange is doing, people are frustrated because we have, we beat City, we lose to Ipswich, we lose to Crystal Palace, we lose to teams we feel we shouldn't lose to, but partially also because our play style fits against teams that want possession, and we don't have the tools to play against teams that don't want possession. So, for example, when we play against teams that want to possess the ball, we have good pressing forwards and midfielders that generate high turnovers and restrict chance creation. We have fast transition players that punish attacking teams and recover from loss of possession quickly. We have good box-to-box pressers in Bissouma, Maddison, and Kulu that draw out opposition attacking players and stretch their structure and create overloads. We can beat teams that defend deep if we have Solanke for box presence and pressing. If we had Romero from last season for the through passes, which he has failed to do as well this season. If we have Kulu, Meadows, Bissouma, and Bentancur for penetration down the middle, and our wingbacks or our inverted wingbacks doing the half spaces. But now we don't have the half space penetration, and we don't have Romero, we don't have Solanke, and we've got our centre backs out and our goalkeeper out. So we have a number of things that weren't helping us this game coming together.
Ollie, before I come to you, let's have a look at the match facts and stats here. So Tottenham 1, Fulham 1. Brennan Johnson putting Spurs 1-0 up in the 54th minute. A wonderful assist from Timo Werner. And then Kearney equalising for Fulham in the 67th minute, and then got sent off in the 83rd minute. Now, Tottenham Hotspur, with that 1-1 draw, we are now up to 7th in the Premier League table, 20 points from 13 games. And we are 3 points away from the top 4. Now, the match facts and stats here, Tottenham had 50.7% of the ball to Fulham's 49.3%. Shots, Spurs had 8 to Fulham's 14. Shots on target, Spurs had 3 to Fulham's 6. Shots off target, Spurs had 3 to Fulham's 4. Block shots, 4 apiece. Total touches in the opposition box, Spurs had 16 to Fulham's incredible 36. Goalkeeper saves, Tottenham 5, Fulham 2. Fouls, Tottenham 4, Fulham 14. And corners, Spurs had 7 to Fulham's 11. Now, Ollie, let's come to you. Let's talk about the starting 11. 4 changes today from the Roma game. So the team was as follows today: Forster, Poro, Dragushin, Davis, Udogi, Basuma, Sark, Madison, Johnson, Son, and Timo Werner. The subs today: Austin, Spence, Gray, Bergval, Regulon, Kulusevski, Elise, Williams, Barnett, and Lancashire. A number of youngsters on the Tottenham Hotspur bench. I suppose it's probably a silly question, Ollie. Were you surprised by the starting 11? Because, of course, everyone expected Dominic Solanke to be in the starting 11 today. But, of course, he turned up at the stadium and was actually sent home by Ange Postecoglou because he felt unwell. And Ange has already said in the post-match press conference that hopefully he will be back for that Bournemouth game on Thursday evening. But other than that, Ollie, were you surprised by that starting 11?
I was surprised not to see Kulusevski. But obviously he played against Roma in midweek, which I was surprised by that in itself. But if you look at our substitutes bench, there's only in that substitutes bench, you can only see Kulusevski as somebody you'd start. Really, I didn't realise Sergio Reguilón even played for us anymore. To be honest, that surprised me. No, I think Ange's that's all he can work with really, and that shows how bad our squad depth is. But I think Kulusevski, the player of our season so far, it was a surprise to see him on the bench. Clearly, he's still got a bit of tiredness from midweek. But that's what we're working with. And that's why, after so many injuries, you got centre-backs, Dragiston and Davis. That's the level we're working with. And that's all you can get, really. I was kind of surprised to see Werner on the left. But when Solanke's not playing, what else can you do other than play Lancashire? I don't think any of us are going to play Lancashire up front. I don't think he's got enough experience. I like him, and I think the future's bright for him. But what else could you do, really, other than play a tired Kulusevski and maybe play Bergval? But I don't think he's ready either. So there isn't much more you can do until you bring in some January reinforcements.
Ollie, I consider myself as quite a positive person, particularly when following Spurs. And I got called negative a number of times in the summer when I kept saying that Ange Postecoglou and Tottenham Hotspur need to go out and buy players for now. Are you surprised that didn't happen? Because many of the guests, if not all of the guests that have come on, during the summer, everyone said the same thing, that we need players for now. We need a better squad. We need more in depth. Are we going to be found that there isn't really that depth that we all want, particularly this month when we've got 9 competitive games in December?
Yeah, I mean, you looked at the bench at the start of the season and you were thinking, we've actually got pretty good depth this year. We've got players like Richarlison on the bench we can bring on, and we've got exciting young players like Mikey Moore. And then suddenly you get to December and we've got the bare bones of youth players coming on. Today you've got Ola Stacey, you've got Archie Gray, Williams, Barnett, and that kind of speaks to how bad our squad depth is. I think there's so many areas we need to strengthen. We need a new keeper. We need to replace Vicario for a couple of months. We desperately need depth at left back, because if Udogi goes, we're absolutely screwed, because we've only got Davis otherwise, and Reguilón, who, let's face it, isn't ready to play for us. Otherwise, he would have been on more matchday squads. We need a number 6, I think. Now we've got Bentancur out for 8 games, so that's a big blow. And then suddenly you're thinking we actually need more depth up front, because Richarlison's injured every 5 seconds. And Son has been, someone said to me the other day, synonymous this season, which he has been quite often. And Timo Werner, you never know what version of him is going to turn up, whether he's just going to blitz teams up and down the pitch for 5 minutes or provide an assist as he did today very well. But I think, if you look at our squad, you could strengthen every area of it. I think we could do with another centre-back as well. So a lot of work to do in the January transfer window, but that you'll ask Ange, are we going to bring anybody in? And you'll just be like, I don't know, mate. I'm happy with that squad. So, I don't expect much to happen, but I think a lot needs to happen.
Ollie, are you still fully behind Ange and what he's trying to do? Because I feel like I'm completely behind Ange Postecoglou in what he's trying to do at the football club. But with these transfer windows, I know that he had an awful lot of work to do. And I feel like a lot of people forget the amount of work that he had to do when he walked through the door and what a mess the club was in. But is he going to get those ready-made players in future transfer windows? I suppose that is what I really want the answer to. Is he going to get those ready-made players that are going to walk into this team and be a game changer from the bench?
in response to your first question, as you know, Chris, I've never fully been behind Ange, because when he first joined, I was very critical, and I do take that back. But my question was, can he, when we go a goal behind, has he got the tactical nous to turn it around and change the tactics and tweak things and win games for us? And that was a big concern of mine, and it's kind of proven that he doesn't have a plan B. That's been the biggest problem of Ange's reign, that he doesn't have a backup plan. And, we can go to Man City and absolutely muller them, but when things go pear-shaped, we don't have a plan. And he's very late to put on substitutions. And it's all very exciting. And I know pundits love talking about how inconsistent we are, but ultimately, I can't see how we win a trophy under this guy when everything is a train wreck constantly. But we're winning 1 week, we're losing 1 week, conceding goals. Like, I don't mind if we lost 4-3 today. At least we gave it a go. But we looked flat today, and as you said, Chris, the atmosphere was flat. So I just don't. I like him. I like Ange. I think he's very positive. I like the way he speaks. I like his attacking philosophy. But I just don't think he's that top level. Like, let's face it, we all want a trophy. We want to end this ridiculous trophy drought. He's not the guy who's going to deliver what we want, unfortunately. And I would love it if I was proven wrong, but I don't think so. And in answer to your other question, I don't think he's going to be backed with ready-made players, because that's not how we roll under Ange. He likes working with Archie Grays and Mikey Moores and young players and Brennan Johnsons, and he likes to kind of mold them into his own. I don't think we're ever going to sign ready-made players until we get bought by Saudi owners, unfortunately.
Craig, before we come to you, Ange Postecoglou has confirmed that Christian Romero and Mickey van der Ven have not trained with the squad as yet. So it's going to be interesting to see when they come back. On Archie Gray, he came off with a dead leg. And talking about Fraser Forster, he said he was good today. We needed him in some big moments in the game. Craig, on the starting 11 today, were you surprised to see the likes of Timo Werner in the starting 11?
A little bit, but then again, obviously the only reason I guess he was in was because of the Solanke illness. So I'd imagine it would have been Son on the left, Solanke through the middle, and Werner would have been drafted in as that replacement, because literally who else have we got that can play on the left? Because, we're short everywhere. But when you think about it, we're actually short right down the spine of the team, right down the middle. Vicario, Van der Ven, Romero, Bentancur, Richarlison, Solanke. That's the main area where, right down the middle. And look, I'm not making excuses, but any team would struggle if you've got that. But that team put out today should have been enough to beat Fulham. I'm sorry, should have been. Fulham are the sort of side that we should be looking to not even think about not getting 6 points from in a season. It's just very disappointing. Very disappointing. The consistency is the thing that's killing. Inconsistency is the thing that's killing us at the moment. If we've got any, it's mad when you look at it, the league table. I mean, where we are, and just 3 points off a Champions League spot. And people will say we're moaning. What are you Spurs fans moaning about? Look, we get a win, couple of losses. The way City are going at the moment, they're a car crash. But that's the frustrating thing. We would have leapfrogged Forest today and just been a point off. So not a massive disaster, but we've got, bearing in mind the fixtures we've got coming up, we could be a bit further down that table over the next 2 weeks, because, as you said, Chris, the next week, 2 weeks, not only I think is it a pivotal moment in our season, it's also a chance to push. It's also a chance to push on if we can actually get our act together, and put a statement down. But how long have we been saying that? So I just don't know what Tottenham's turning up at the moment. Any game, it's. I'll try not to use the word frustrating. I'm trying to think of another word I could use, and I can't think of one. But
do you know what, Craig?
Yeah.
It was so flat today inside that stadium. Since that stadium opened in April 2019, I would probably put that down. That atmosphere today was probably the flattest I have ever known in all of the games that I've attended at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. That was the flattest today. So quiet amongst the fans. Are you surprised?
Chris, sorry, I just have a point on that. And it's so frustrating that Return of the Shelf tried to do something about that, to have the singing section, and the club, instead of organizing a singing section that allowed them to specifically book those a block of fans that would be able to sing together, they just sent out emails saying anyone can book this. So we don't have a dedicated singing section, and it's something that the fans are organizing on their own. All the club needs to do is facilitate it, and the club just didn't take the step that they could have to make it a good environment for the fans to get together in the singing section and actually back the team.
Dustin, let's stay with you for a second, because how are you feeling about Ange Postecoglou and what he's done at Spurs so far? And do you think he's going to be successful if given the time and the patience? Because as Craig said, we can all sit here and be positive about it, saying, well, actually, we've been so inconsistent this season. You know, we beat the champions, we lose to Ipswich, blah, 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 and we are only 3 points off top four. Are you glass half full?
I think it's very hard to say glass half full because it's actually quite a complex question. I think that we have a lot of factors that are confounding things. One is that there are more injuries this season than any other time, because even teams like City, even Liverpool haven't really been hit by a very bad injury crisis yet. But we've seen that lots of teams have an injury crisis now because we've had the Nations League. We've just got a very full schedule. And players are starting to get to a point that they'll make a point about this schedule is ridiculous. Rodri did that and got injured like almost a week after. So it is something that's going to happen to every team. We are especially thin because we have a rebuild that we need to do from seasons of buying a team for 3 at the back managers, and then we still haven't been able to ship those players out. Contractually, we have all these contracts that players are running down. We've also not rebuilt the team well, where we've shipped out a player that was not a fit for the system in Højbjerg, but we haven't replaced the leadership of him coming on last season and helping us see out games, having the kind of like being the captain on the pitch that makes sure that players do what they need to do, don't lose their attention when they're marking people, like Romero has done as one of the captains. Højbjerg would have been one of the first people to scream at him about like who he should be following. So while Højbjerg as a player was not a fit for the system, and a lot of fans were frustrated with him, he did help us show games on because he had the experience. He had, he's a captain for his country. He is the kind of mold of player or the kind of experience that we're looking for in the squad that will help us see out games. And if you can find someone that's a tactical fit for the system, that's great. But we lack that kind of leadership position.
Yeah, we did mention that, Dustin, a number of times during the summer, and particularly when Højbjerg left. But I don't feel like a lot of fans like to admit that we do actually miss someone like him to shore up the game at the end of matches, which he did so often. Before we get into the match incidents, Ollie, let's start with you. Which players today impressed you, and which players need to give more?
Brennan Johnson. I think if we had 11 Brennan Johnsons, I mean, he scored his 10th. I think it was his 10th goal of the season today. I've been really impressed with Brennan this season. I'm a big fan of expressions, as you know, and he calls him Brennan the Rock Johnson, and I just love that. And I think he might not always get involved in the game. Sometimes he disappears a little bit, but he's scoring goals. He scored against City. He scored against Roma. He scored again today. He's popping up at the back post. And actually, Werner, he got the assist against City. Absolutely rinsed Kyle Walker, former Spurs boy, and got the assist for Brennan. And got the assist again today. Another brilliant cross. I was really impressed. I was really impressed by Werner as far as he went, and then obviously he gets subbed off at the end, fades a little bit. But apart from that, could you really pick out a man of the match? I mean, but Forster, I thought, made some good saves. Forster's really impressed me. I thought he was really good against Roma. I was kind of worried when Vicario was injured. I thought we might have to get. There was talk of James Trafford coming in on loan. But yeah, defense was on top. Apart from the goal, not the best. I thought Porro got kind of exposed down the right flank. Yeah, Dragus and Davis have been solid. I agree with the comments. Dragus and Davis, you were kind of worried. You remember last year we had Emerson Royale at the back with Davis, and that was a real dark days. But Dragus and Davis, to be fair to them, they've done well, and it seems like they're going to be together for a little bit longer after what Ange said. Kasuma, I think, doesn't quite do it for me. Maddison, it was disappointing that he had a brilliant game against City, and then it disappears again. I think that's the story of his career, really. Son is just he looks tired. He looks leggy. But yeah, for me, you couldn't really pick out a star man today. But I was pleased with mainly Forster and Johnson.
Craig,
I'm going to say something controversial. I'm sorry. I'm just going to say something controversial. I agree with your assessment that Dragusin and Davies played well. In fact, I thought Davies played very well today. One of the best games I've seen him play. Unfortunately, I think the controversial thing I'm going to say is that when we are highlighting Dragusin and Davies playing well for their defensive displays, it means that Ange ball hasn't worked, because what we're meant to be doing is attacking. When we see Ange ball working, it's like we are lamenting, oh, why did we concede from that break? When teams have to do counter-attacks and breaks against us and rely on our lapses in intention, that means it's desperation on their end, and it's because we've had so much possession that is the only kind of attack that they can pull off. When we're saying that our best performers are defenders, it means that the defenders have put in a good performance, but it means that our system, we've not played the way we want to play, mate, because that means that we've had to do too much defending and we haven't done enough chance creation.
That's not controversial at all, Dustin. I think you're spot on. Craig, who are your standout players today, and who needs to give more?
Yeah, I agree a lot with what Ollie said. To be honest with you, I thought Davies was really good today. Dragusin had a good game. I think Werner was pretty good. It's quite. It happens quite a lot where wingers perhaps drift in and out of the game, but if you're there in moments to do your job and you create a goal or score a goal, then you're halfway to doing your job, because that's what Johnson's there for. So Johnson, had a bit of a quiet game in spells, but again, puts the ball in the back of the net for us. And Werner, I thought, was pretty good up until he went off. A bit surprised he did go off, but I guess they got to look after him because we're low on wingers, as we know. I thought Forster did okay today. Again, I don't think he had much of a chance for the goal. Made a couple of errors in the first half with that pass, but apart from that, pretty solid. Bissouma always looks better when he comes on for me. He just looks a bit out of sorts. Maddison, again, quiet. Obviously, with the free kick, just grazed off the guy's studs another day that would have gone in. But Sonny, for me, is a real worry. He just seems to be, whether he's carrying an injury or whether age is catching up with him. He wasn't playing in his best position today, but I just want to see him shoot a bit more. There's so many times he could shoot, and it happened again today, a couple of occasions. Put your foot through it, making bad decisions where he's done his step over that he always does and goes down the outside, and he's getting beaten to the ball by a defender that's actually, you'd think would be slower than him. But I don't know what it is. Sonny's just a little bit off it at the moment, and it's really difficult to be critical of Son, because I absolutely love the guy, but perhaps he's being overused for his age. Perhaps he does need, he can't play 2 games in a week,
I was going to ask that, Craig. Is all the criticism on Heung-min Son fair? Because whenever we seem to lose a game, and I'm not talking, just now, I'm talking about over the years, when even Harry Kane was his partner, whenever we lost a game, he always seems to be that scapegoat, always seems to be that guy that gets the blame.
I think he's an easy target, isn't he? Because, he's such a nice guy. He never comes out and does anything. But I think sometimes when somebody's just that sort of person, a bit like Ben Davies, doesn't really, warrant half the abuse that he gets and criticism that he gets. But Sonny's the captain, he's our talisman, and he'll know in himself he hasn't been playing well. But I do think a lot of that is the fact that he's 32 years old, I think, And I think they're just having to play him a bit too much because of these injuries. I'm sure Ange would love to leave him out completely out of the midweek game sometimes, certainly Europa, but he's having to give him game time. You know, as soon as you hit 30, your body doesn't recover as quickly as in your 20s. It doesn't. Father Time catches up with you. And I'd rather have a fit Son for one game a week rather than a half decent or 60-70% Son for 2 games a week. I would much rather him be raring to go in the Premiership games and then obviously deal with the Europa League, because we should have enough in this Europa League to play any other players in that position. You know, if Werner's fit, you know, you shouldn't even need to play Son. Give him a rest.
Dustin, let's come to you. There's a comment here. Yes, he does. On this podcast, you were saying that he shouldn't be captain ever since he became captain. I don't know who you've listened to or what you think you've heard, but for me being the Spurs Chat podcast host, I've always thought that Heung-min Son should be captain, and I thought it was a great appointment. And Son's my favourite ever player, so I don't know what you've heard. Perhaps you've been listening to a different podcast. But Dustin, let me ask you about Heung-min Son. What do you make of, or what have you made of Son so far this season? He's had a lot of criticism, and by the way, I completely agree with your comments earlier about Radu Dragushin and Ben Davies, and of course, as Craig mentioned, Fraser Forster, also standout player today, made a number of fantastic saves. And when you've got those types of players being the standout players, then clearly the game plan hasn't worked, has it?
Yep, absolutely. So if we're playing well, you should be hearing about what Maddison did, what Brennan Johnson did. You should be hearing about what our attacking players did. You should be talking about our chance creation, how we cut them apart. If you're not hearing that, then it hasn't gone to plan. With Son, I think that he is very, very overworked. A big part of it is something that happens because every time there's an international break, he flies off to Korea, he flies off to different parts of the world. You have it, the South American players as well. It's not their fault, it's just geography. They have to fly a very long way to play. He's his team's captain as well. So you're always going to have a player that is very overworked, proud to wear the shirt for both club and country. But that means that he has to put in 100% every time, because there are 2 sets of teams looking up to him to be the example. And he is a person that takes that load on very willingly, but it also means that he runs himself into the ground for club and country every time. It means that he's a man that's played with a broken arm the entire game. We didn't find out after. Vicaris done the same now. So I think that with Son, you have to manage his minutes, and it's not because sometimes it's because there's a performance issue, but really it's because age is catching up, and you want to preserve his career so that we can have a Son that we remember for the greatness that he has done as a servant of the club, rather than having him break down. Like, you know, the saddest thing I've seen is Vertonghen and the way that he left because he had the concussion that we never knew about, right? And then you just remember him as the player that had a really bad drop-off. And I don't want that for Son. I want us to manage his minutes better so that we continue having maybe like the second coming of Bale. He didn't play much, but when he did, he was quality. So we can manage his minutes such that we get good performances out of him, but we don't run him to the ground and ruin his like longevity of his career. That would be great.
Dustin, let's stay with you. Let's get into the match incidents, because in the very first minute, Heung-min Son had a glorious chance here. Shot a goal. Leno made a save with his foot. Should Son have scored here? Should he have done a lot better?
Well, we know the answer to that is that Son in his prime just puts that away, either with a step over or with his weaker foot into the bottom corner. But I think that Son's strength is running into space rather than receiving the ball back to goal. So I think that there are teams, or there are certain teams that you play against where Son does well, particularly teams where he can find space in behind them and then bamboozle defenders on the left. So for certain teams that play low blocks or mid blocks, it's harder because he receives the ball back to goal a lot more, and that's not his strength. What I wish we see more of, we see him cut in, but we don't see him cut in and shoot anymore. And maybe it's just defenders knowing that he's got a lethal shot and they cover it off. But we're really not seeing long distance shooting from him anymore. We used to see him cut in and Udogi make a run that he finds a pass into, but we're not seeing those runs. So I think a lot of it is actually Udogi having a disappointing game. And I think that we talked about best performance. I think that Poro and Udogi had particularly poor games today because they didn't provide the half space creation that we need. And without the half space creation, all the wingers are stuck with having one way, which is to cut into the center, but there's no one to pass into the half spaces for chance creation or cutbacks. So then the defenders just block the shooting lanes and then they have to pass back. So I think that a lot of the blame for the lack of penetration today can also be laid on the inverted wingbacks who didn't have a good day at the office today.
Ollie, let's come to you. Let's jump to the 17th minute. Fraser Forster making a good save from Jimenez. I know we've touched on Fraser Forster already, but what have you made of him in a Spurs shirt this season, particularly since Vicario's injury? Because at the age of 36, he is now expected to play a number of games in all competitions in the Premier League, of course in the League Cup, Europa League, and maybe even in the FA Cup in January. What have you made of him so far?
Yeah, well, as I said before, I think I've been very impressed by him, and I was actually right behind that goal for the Roma game, and I saw him up close, and I think he's got incredible reflexes. So I think we have to be grateful for that. But the problem is he doesn't have the same ball playing skills as Vicario does. So I think that's going to hamper our game. And when you've got Dragusin and Davis playing in front of him, you haven't got the ball playing skills of Romero and Van de Ven. It's going to affect the way we play a lot. But just focusing on him as a goalkeeper, I was a bit worried, as I said before. I was a bit worried when Vicario got injured, as we all were, because as susceptible to mistakes as he can be, he has been overall very good for us, Vicario. And I was worried that Forster, he's going to be 37 next summer. But to be fair to him, he still looks like he's got a lot of top performances in him. Like he's making top saves. His reflexes are good. He was very agile both today and against Roma. So I'm a little bit less anxious now, knowing that we're going to have him until February. I was thinking, let's get to January and let's quickly sign a backup keeper. But then all that's going to happen is, Forster's going to have him as his backup probably, and then Vicario will come back in mid-Feb, and then he'll be of no use to us. So I don't necessarily think we have to do that. So yeah, I'm happy with him so far. I think he's a very experienced player to have in the dressing room as well. He's played a lot of minutes. He's played for Southampton and he's played for England and Celtic. So I think he's apparently a very fun guy to have around. I think he's friendly with Sonny. I've seen a few videos of them having banter and stuff. So I think he's a good guy to have around. I think we're in good hands with him, quite literally.
There's a comment here from Paul, and funny enough, Paul, I said exactly the same a couple of friends earlier at the stadium. Forster has done well, but the niggles and bruises as a starter are going to add up. I'm an older guy. You don't bounce back like when we were younger. So many games would cause him to slow. I completely agree. But fingers crossed he can play all these games until Vicario comes back. That's an interesting one, actually, Ollie. With sticking on the subject of Fraser Forster, do you think that in any of these games, Ange will actually rest Fraser Forster and perhaps give Brandon Austin a game, because he's never played a competitive game for Spurs, given a new contract, and he's 25?
Yeah, I think there's definitely scope to, because if you think about it, Forster was only going to play in the cup games, wasn't he? So now that he's going to play in all the Premier League games, there probably is scope to play Austin. But then is he ready? Does he have the experience? When we go up against Man United, Ruben Amorim's rejuvenated Manchester United, are you going to trust him to come in for that game? Probably not. Are you going to trust him to come in for the Europa League campaign when we desperately need points so we can qualify? I don't know. So the point that that guy made in the comments, when you never bounce back, he is going to take some niggles and he's going to play a lot of games. And as I said, he's 37 next year. I'm 30. I went to a boxing class the other day. I got absolutely battered. I could barely move. I couldn't walk. I thought I'd been hit by a bus, and it's tough. as you get older, my mum said the other day, like, oh, you get aches and pains and everything hurts. And I'm only 30, so God knows how he feels. And probably takes a few balls in the face as well. A few punches going up for punching the ball from a corner. So it's going to be tough for him. So we might have no choice to. I've just gone back on myself. We might have no choice but to sign somebody in January. So we'll see. I don't know. But clearly, he doesn't trust Austin. Otherwise, he would have got some game time over Forster. But we'll see.
Craig, let's come to you. Spurs had a chance in the 19th minute, a poor back pass to the Fulham goalkeeper. Basically let Son in, but the goalkeeper was given time to gather, which was a little bit disappointing. And a few groans from the Tottenham Hotspur fans because they felt that Son should have got there and shot and obviously scored, but he didn't. What do you make of that chance?
Basically, exactly what you just said there. Yeah, I think is it reaction times? Is reaction time as quick? Is it because didn't think he could get there, or none of the above and something else? I don't know. I think the Son of old would have been on that, but I've seen occasions this season where he's been lively and he's looked like that pace and instinct to back. He just almost looks like he's not sure of his own ability at the moment. Son sometimes, He's worrying because.
Do you put it down to tiredness, though, Craig? Because this season, I feel like all season, even very early on, 2, 3, 4 games gone in the Premier League season, you guys on the podcast have said, yeah, Son looks tired. You've been saying it all season. How can a player look tired so early on in the season?
I'm not sure it's completely tired. I'm not sure it's completely tiredness. I think there's elements of it. But again, it's what we've been discussing. It comes down to age. I think age is finally catching up with Son. Somebody who, I saw a picture of him 2 or 3 days ago on social media. He looks exactly the same as he does now. I wish I looked that good like 10 years ago. I didn't look very, very good then, to be honest with you, let alone now. But Son, he looks exactly like he did 10 years ago. But, his body's 10 years older. So he's going to get these moments. And like I say, whether it's overplaying, I don't know. Perhaps his age just catching up with Sonny. Perhaps is Son, dare I say it, is Son, and I can't believe I'm saying this, is Son good in this system? If he can't do what he's being asked to do, we know he does. In some games, he can do it. Can he play with that? I mean, Brennan Johnson looks absolutely knackered after being up and down on the wing. I don't think Sonny does as much defensively as Johnson does. So Johnson's a young guy. It must be tough. It must be tough. And you saying about playing games in a week, Chris, the training sessions are pretty tough, aren't they? So we're saying, playing 2 games a week. They're training every day. What's the training taking out of him? Is that too much for him?
Yeah. So, that brings me back on to talk about the transfer window, because when you're working these players so hard, and I think it's easy for us fans to just say, go with the strongest possible 11. How many times do I say that? Go with the strongest possible 11, but it's not that easy because, as Dustin said, you've got to manage players' game time. Dustin, sorry, you wanted to come in.
Yeah, I mean, about managing game time, one of the things that we talk about is that we talk about why didn't they play this player? Why didn't Kulu come on earlier, right? But I think part of it as well is that you don't witness the injuries prevented from players not playing, because if they're rotated out, we only see the injuries and go, why did we overplay Van der Ven? Why do we have so many muscular injuries, right? So we only see injuries after they happen, and then we criticize rotations. But what if the rotations are intended to prevent injuries, and you just never see those injuries because the rotations happen? Because ultimately, we have physios that manage minutes. They can see when the player is redlining. So part of it is we also have to reckon with the fact that we don't have complete information. And sometimes players are being rotated out because there is a risk that they're going to be overloaded and have an injury as a result. Maybe sometimes they play and then they look out of sorts because they're just tired, or they've just come back from a long international break.
Dustin, let's stay with you. In the 21st minute, following a corner, Spurs had to make a couple of blocks from Fulham shots. What did you make of Spurs overall defensively today? I know we've spoken a little bit about Dragushin and Davis, but defensively, are you happy with how we're defending?
I think that Davies has shown quite a lot of leadership, because a lot of what he's doing, you don't expect him to be doing at this age. And I think that what's happened is that he's relying a lot on his reading of the game to get himself into positions where he's there to make the interception, there to make the block. It's not athleticism, although he does keep himself fit. But I think that Ben Davies is improving a lot in his reading of the game, such that he is able to defend. And I think that he's a pretty good partner for Dragusin as well, because I frequently see him directing Dragusin on positioning, or you pick up this player, I'm going to cover the person on the far end. So I think that it's been a good pairing, because he's actually probably more vocal than Romero is, for example. So I think Davies has been, a lot of people have said, we need to have better ambition if we're going to be challenging for the Champions League, and Ben Davies is not it. I might have said it before previously, but I think the point is that he has been a good servant to the club, and he's always stepped up, never complained about his minutes. And I think that Ben Davies has been a rock for us to depend on at this point.
Yeah. After 25 minutes, Pedro Porro shot wide from distance. A couple of minutes later, across from the right, Fulham cleared. Timo Werner running in. On 36 minutes, Fraser Forster making another save. Fulham cross coming in from the right, and then shot at Forster. A couple of minutes later, James Maddison with a great delivery in the box. Radu Dragushin header. Leno tipping it over the bar. That was the first time on 38 minutes that the crowd actually sang "Come on, you Spurs," and that was the first bit of atmosphere inside that stadium today. Ollie, what did you make of this chance? Because it was a great delivery in from James Maddison, Dragushin header. It was fairly, at the goalkeeper, so an expected save, but it certainly lifted the crowd at that point.
Yeah, it was a great chance. Not one. We didn't have many chances to get the crowd up for it, but to be fair, I think the crowd can only respond to what the players are giving them. And you said it was the flattest you heard the stadium since we moved in 2019. But it's up to the players to give us a performance that we can get behind. We can't. Obviously, you can cheer all game, and I've been to games in Germany where they're banging drums and yelling and screaming from minute one. But English football fans aren't really wired that way. We feed off the energy from the players, and the players in turn feed off the energy from us. But they have to set the foundations, I think. So I think it's up to the players. They should. I'm surprised that we weren't just, pedal to the pedal to the metal from minute one. I think that would have got the crowd up for it. So I think, as much as the crowd should have been singing, they didn't have a reason to sing.
Ollie, what have you made of James Maddison? Because that was a great delivery in. But what have you made of him so far this season? Because, of course, in Andrew's press conference, he said that I'm sure a lot of players would love to have Madder's self-belief. Should he be giving more? Should he be delivering more on the pitch week by week?
Yeah, and I think, as I said before, that's one of the stories of his season, the story of any season he's played. He starts off well and then kind of tails off towards Christmas, and then he picks up again towards the end of the season and then fades off again. I think if he produced the performance that he produced against Man City every week, he would be a starter for England. There's no doubt about that. I mean, maybe he'd struggle with Bellingham in the team, but you'd find a way to put him in because he's that good. He's so creative. He's so good with his feet. He finds the pockets in midfield, and that's what he was supposed to do. And these are the games we needed him for, to pick the lock against the stubborn defence. I mean, Fulham are a decent side, but these are the kind of games when it's 1-1, we needed him to pick the lock. And I know he did a few times, but he just doesn't deliver. And I was almost annoyed when he scored twice against Man City, and I was watching it with a friend, and I said, where has this Madders been all season long? And it's frustrating because I know how good he can be. And there was talk when he first came in. I interviewed a former Spurs player last season. It was Jermaine Genius, who is not being talked about at the moment for obvious reasons. But he said, he could be the answer to Harry Kane if he delivered as much as we want him to, but he hasn't done that. And yeah, it's a shame. But I love Madders, and I really want him to pick up the consistency. I think it might be to do with injuries as well. I mean, he got really badly injured last season around the same time as now, and I think that affected him a lot. I think it's confidence, but we see so often how much he does turn it on. So I think, yeah, I'm hoping it will continue like he did against City, but it's happening too much at the moment, and it's hard to see.
Yeah.
I think the two aspects of Matters that like I both like and dislike, right? When he was dropped by Ange, I mean you said it was tactical, right? But when he was dropped and he came back desperate to prove himself, we've seen the kind of steel he has. We've seen the way he was harrying. He wasn't just doing offensive work well; he was doing defensive work well as well. That's the Matters I want, and I think that's the edge we have. It's like Dele Alli kind of had that edge as well. So I feel that that's the Matters I want. But I feel that he also kind of believes his own hype quite a bit, which is why you've noticed that multiple opposition players, when they want to taunt us, they do the meta separation. So clearly, there's some kind of banter going on between him and opposition players, and I feel that the edge that he has that could make him really focused and really the best player in the team is also the same edge that he gets carried away with opposition players trying to troll opposition fans. And I wish that he focused more on the parts of the game where that make him the best player on the field rather than the part that makes opposition fans and players want to troll him.
Craig, let's come to you. On 40 minutes, Fraser Forster tried to play a fast pass out. We weren't ready. Fulham were on the attack. Luckily, it got blocked and then cleared. 2 minutes later, Forster made a great save. Wobie's effort, and then it fired against the crossbar. On 45 minutes, Son to Timo Werner. Timo Werner won the free kick. 8 Fulham players, and I tell you what, full credit to Timo Werner here. I think there was 8 Fulham players back. Timo Werner won a free kick. Of course, James Maddison took the free kick. It ended up hitting the post. Very clever free kick, very unlucky. But, you know, quite often on this podcast, we do criticise Timo Werner. What did you make of his performance today?
I thought he was one of the better players on the pitch. I really do. He always looked like a threat going forward, committing defenders. And you said he did buy that free kick, to be honest. I don't think it was a foul. I think he jumped in the air and managed to win us a free kick. But it's all part of the game. It's all part of gamesmanship. But yeah, Timo Werner, pretty decent performance today on the whole. Just doing his job, putting a few good balls, obviously putting the ball for the goal as well. So yeah, I've got no complaints with the way Timo played today, to be fair.
Dustin, at the halfway point, how are you feeling?
At the halfway point, I was feeling like we didn't have enough chance creation. I felt like we normally have multiple ways of breaking teams down, but I felt that we didn't have the tools just because the squad was threadbare, and we were lacking a number of means of breaking teams down. I observed that there was a point that we were doing a lot of cross-field balls to Johnson, and maybe that was a specific direction to try. So I think we did 2 or 3 times, but then after that we stopped, and then we started trying to penetrate on the left half space. So it feels like they were probing Fulham and trying to see which approaches would work. But past a certain point, they ran out of ideas and maybe ran out of the ideal personnel required to take those routes to goal. So then we ended up recycling possession. We you know what we did under Conte a lot, which is like go down one flank and then pass it back all the way to the keeper and then try to work down the other flank. We need to switch flanks a lot faster and start scoring the goals that we are the best at conceding, which is, you know, one wing going to the far post and scoring.
Dustin, just on Timo Werner, what did you make of Timo Werner's performance? Because this is a player that has been heavily criticised by a number of Spurs fans this season by not giving enough, not doing enough in games. But certainly he did the job that was asked of him today.
Yeah, I think that when you look at Timo Werner, you have to judge him based on what he's being asked to do. He's often judged very harshly. Because he is seen as a forward. he's seen as his job is seen to be scoring goals, but he hasn't done that since Leipzig. We've seen from Chelsea that he is not a prolific goal scorer. So what he's asked to do in the system is to use his speed and maintain width to draw defenders out so that there is space in the half spaces and the center for us to score. If he can cut in and make a cross or a cutback, that's exactly what he's brought in to do. His finishing is bad, but he is not brought in to be a finisher. He's brought in to drag defenders wide such that we have other finishers, late arrivals to the box from midfield or the strikers to finish. So the kind of goal that we expect Timo to create is the kind that was created for Brennan Johnson in the Roma game, for example, which is cutting down the flank, the one that Kulusevski did, cutting down the flank, cutting it back across goal and scoring. So if you judge Timo based on what we want him to do, it's chance creation and pulling defenders over to him because he's fast and that's a threat that they have to contend with. If we're relying on Timo to score goals, then that's not a profile fit at all.
Yeah, we'll come on to talk about Timo's cross in a second. Ollie, let's come to you. On 50 minutes, Fulham cross from the left to the back post, header at goal, Fraser Forster saved. A couple of seconds later, a good move again from Fulham, shot over the bar. 2 minutes later, Fulham, really good spell this was for them. Cross from the left again, a Wobie shot, Forster save. And a minute later, cross from the left again, header at goal, easy for Forster. This was probably Fulham's best spell of the game, in my opinion. And then literally a minute later, Spurs go up the other end, Timo Werner crosses, which we'll talk about in a second. And then, of course, Brennan Johnson finished. But this was probably the best spell of the game for Fulham. What did you make of Fulham today, Ollie?
Yeah, Fulham are a good team, and I was worried, especially for Emil Smith Rowe. I thought, he's the former Arsenal player. He's going to come back and haunt us. But I was worried because this is a banana skin, and too often we're looking at teams. I think we go into games against teams like Bournemouth and Brighton and just expect to turn them over. And you see the Premier League at the moment. I mean, we're 5 points off second, and we're in 7th. And Man United won today, and that they can get a couple of wins. They'll be back in the top 4 race. Fulham are only 1 point off us, and we kind of look down. We look down on Fulham and see them as a mid-table team, but they're only a point off us, and they've been doing well. They've picked up a few decent results. They've won 5 games, is one less than us. I thought they did well today, and you showed those stats earlier, Chris, and you could actually say they were probably the better team. They probably had the more dangerous moments, and they made us quite nervy until there you go, 14 shots. 36 touches in our box is criminal. We should never be letting anybody have 36 touches in our box, especially when we're only having 16. And I said I don't mind if we win 5-4. I don't even mind if we lose 5-4 as long as we have a go. But as Craig said today, our team was depleted and there was lots of injuries and absences, but it was good enough to beat Fulham. And I don't think we really stepped up the gas. We didn't really get out of third gear at times today, and that was really disappointing. But we can't say that Fulham aren't a good team. They're a very good attacking team. They got a good manager. But yeah, I thought we can't really complain because they had the better of the game at times today, and we only really did we even push it after the sending off. Didn't really think we did. So that's how it is. But it shouldn't be that way. There's no way we should be level on points with Brentford. There's no way we should be 2 points behind Nottingham Forest, who have got a manager we sacked because his tactics were so bad. So yeah, it's disappointing.
Craig, let's come to you. Let's talk about Tottenham's goal in the 54th minute. Of course, all the hard work was done by Timo Werner. Brennan Johnson there yet again. Absolutely delighted for Brennan Johnson. Another goal for him. But it was all about the cross, wasn't it? A wonderful delivery by Timo Werner.
Yeah, got himself some space there on the edge of the box. Had a look up. You can see Johnson with his arms in the air there in acres of space. Fulham won't be happy at all with that defending. And the ball had to be right and just clipped it across, and Johnson volleyed home. So yeah, another great assist by Timo Werner. People do slag off Werner. He's had his fair share of stick on here, but he did play well today.
From you?
Obviously, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But he's done his job today. he's done his job today and he played well. Not much else you can say. I thought he was, like I say, one of the better players on the pitch, and defenders do not like anybody that runs at them with pace and gets them turned. And Werner did that a fair few times today and occupied them. He's not. We all know where his failings are. He's never going to be a 20-goal-a-year man, even a 10-goal-a-year man. But if that's what he does and he sticks to what he's good at, then he'll get his fair share of assists.
Well, I tell you, someone who might be a 20-goal-a-season man, that might be Brennan Johnson, Craig, the way he's going, because he's really banging them in at the moment. Talk to me about how impressed you've been with someone like Brennan Johnson this season, because, of course, he is another player who's had a lot of criticism from Spurs fans.
Yeah, and it was funny to hear that, like, I don't know if it was Ange said this, but or somebody else, a commentator or whatever, but it's that Tottenham's wingers will probably get more goals than the number 9, the centre forward Solanke. I remember coming on here saying Solanke should be getting 20 goals plus for Tottenham under this system, but the amount of work he gets through that's not necessarily seen by supporters or appreciated. We all know Solanke, the amount of work he gets through and what he does, holding up the ball, tracking back, doing the dirty work and the hard yards, so to speak. And but Brennan Johnson's been in the right place at the right time. Was it 10 goals now, like you said this season? So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all if he gets 20 plus, as long as he stays fit. Been very impressed with him. You know, he had a fair bit of stick, obviously, beginning of the season, had to come off social media, and then went through that great spell of 5 or 6 games where he scored in every game, and now obviously he's well on the way to doing that again. So I've been really impressed with Brendan Johnson. I think he's only going to get better as well. I think along with Kulusevski, it's great to see them linking up as well. So yeah, I'm so pleased for him, Johnson, because he did get a fair bit of stick.
Dustin, as I mentioned, Fulham had a lot of chances at the start of the second half, and then Spurs went up the other end and scored. But then the Fulham pressure then continued again. Fulham had a shot from 20 yards out in the 63rd minute, and then 3 minutes later, it was 1-1. Kearney equalising, but great work from Iwobi. Now, looking at this image here, Iwobi with the ball, what do you think of Spurs defensively here? Because, of course, you've got Kearney coming in on the edge of the box, who actually shoots wonderfully past Fraser Forster, giving our goalkeeper absolutely no chance.
Yeah, so I think that it's important here to look at, like, the commentary that we have from the pundits and the media sometimes, which is like, oh, we play this naive Chelsea highline. It's a narrative from last season, but the reality is that we're actually often conceding goals when we have, how many defenders do we have here? We have like 8 defenders in the box, right? So it's actually more a problem of late arrivals to the box, and that's a case of our players getting pulled out of position and not tracking runners, and our midfielders being drawn to the ball rather than having a view of like who the late arrivals to the box are. So from a defensive perspective, I think that it's kind of a trade-off that we have, even though there can be individual drills to improve that that awareness. For example, previously we were conceding a lot of goals where Brennan Johnson doesn't pick up his man and they arrive at the far post. So this is just something that we have to work through, because the trade-off is we are an attacking team, and when we have attacking players, they're always thinking about if the opposition loses the ball here, I'm going on a run. So that is the gearing of the way the attacking players are thinking. They're not thinking about, do I track this person because he's a defensive threat? When you have an attacking team with attacking players, they think of it in terms of how can they gain an attacking advantage, often not what is the defensive downside. So I think that's where we're missing a player, and I'm not saying that it's necessarily a Højbjerg style player, but we're missing a midfield general. It should be someone like Bissouma or Bentancur, right? Which is the person that's tracking all these late runners to the box. But currently, they are often also drawn in by pretty basic mistakes, which is tracking the ball rather than tracking the runners when the ball is maybe already covered by defenders.
Dustin, let's stay with you because 2 minutes after we conceded that goal, Timo Werner came off, Kulusevski came on. What did you make of that sub in particular? Because, again, I heard a lot of people today criticising the times of the subs from Ange Postecoglou. What did you make of the subs overall from Ange today?
I think not having Kulusevski on is a calculated gamble that could have paid off. The reason I say it could have paid off is that if Kulu is tired and he needs a rest and you need to prevent him getting injured, but you might still need him to win a game, if you have him at the start and you don't maximize on that and you don't score, he'll be tired and you have to take him off and then you lose. He's been our best player of the season, right? So the gamble was rest Kulu and have Kulu come on against tired legs. And that could have worked if we had brought him on a little bit earlier, such that Iwobi didn't have the freedom that he did on the flank, which I mentioned earlier. So I think that the timing of the subs can be tweaked, but sometimes he was already warming up. So maybe just the ball didn't go out, so he didn't come on and he couldn't have prevented Iwobi from having that freedom. But I think that managing Kulu's minutes is important because we don't have a replacement for him. We don't have a replacement for Udogie, and Udogie's not playing well now either. I don't know what Spence has done because I don't understand a scenario where we are playing so many minutes for Udogie and Porro, and Spence gets no minutes whatsoever. He's not even playing the Europa League. So I'm really curious as to why Gray is played out of position as opposed to Spence, who is an actual like right or left back.
Can you see him getting minutes in the near future, Dustin, Jed Spence? Because it does seem to baffle a lot of people. It looked like he was going to go out the door. Then, of course, Ange Postecoglou gave him a chance. He then got minutes in pre-season, which a lot of people didn't see coming. But can you see him getting game time now? Of course, he's not in the Europa League squad. Of course, that can change when we progress in the competition. But can you see him getting Premier League minutes when we've got such a busy schedule?
So there's an interpretation that you have to come to from a player not getting minutes despite us needing the cover. Why have our younger goalkeepers not played? Why has Jed Spence not played? It's either attitude or a judgment that they're not up to it at the moment. And that's kind of the criticism for like, why didn't we register him for the Europa League? And now Vicario got injured, so we do need Foster for the Europa League. But then it's like, do we trust these players or not? And if we don't trust them, why are they still in the squad? So it is, borrowing Craig's word, frustrating to see Jed Spence there as a actual, by definition, career left or right back. He can play either wing. And not see him get minutes, not see him take minutes off Porro and Udogie, who are already overplayed, and Udogie has already gotten injured or had an illness this season. So Jed Spence should be getting more minutes unless we don't trust him, in which case we should either loan him or sell him. With our goalkeepers, it's a similar situation.
Ollie, let's come to you. On 77 minutes, Maddison had a free kick just outside the box. It deflected over the bar. And then on 83 minutes, Kearney was actually sent off. Originally, he was given a yellow card. And then the referee went over to the screen and then issued the red card. What did you make of this challenge?
Yeah, it was interesting, wasn't it? Because he comes on as a sub, scores the goal, and then gets sent off. It's almost Spursy, you could say. But no, I think it's a clear red. I mean, he stamps on his calf, doesn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, I assume you can't play it back for obvious reasons, but no, I think he stamps on his calf. I thought I could kind of see that it was a red, and I think usually when they go over to the monitor, it means that they've pretty much made up their minds, or at least the VAR has, and they pretty much said, go look at it for yourself. It's a red. But then again, I was thinking, if we're playing against 10 men, it's actually going to be harder for us because they're just going to be backs against the wall. And so it proved to be. We didn't really push on after the red. So I'm not sure it actually helped us. But yeah, I think definite red. I don't think, if that was anybody else, I think he'd be crying out for a red. So yeah, I think it was the right decision.
Ollie, you mentioned or you certainly touched on it about the having the urgency to then going on to win the game when Fulham are down to 10 men. Did you expect a lot more?
Yeah, I always expect I expect a lot more full stop, regardless of whether we have the numerical advantage. I think the problem is you had 6 players who played against Roma, who started against Roma, playing the game. So I think maybe the tank was empty, especially when you're questioning why didn't we go for the jugular when they had 10 men? And I think everybody was gassed. I mean, Son, he looks tired all the time. He played the 90. He started against Roma, and then we actually subbed on Madison, and then he starts. So it's kind of baffling when you think about, we're trying to manage people's minutes. Why did we start Kulusevski against Roma? I would have played Bergvall instead, or I would have played somebody else in midfield. I would have played different people, because you want your best players fit for these games, and we do look tired. Werner played both games. Sarr played both games. Johnson started as well. I know we had players like Bentancur to come in and stuff, but both our centre backs started against Roma. So I just think we're really struggling with this lack of depth, and I think that is why. I think you could possibly explain that's the reason why we so inconsistent. I think it's confidence mixed with tiredness, and that does not lead to a good resolution.
Craig, let's come to you. On 85 minutes, Bergvall and Gray came on, Madison and Sarr went off. And then in the 91st minute, Radu Dragushin clearing off the line after a good Fulham attack. What do you make of the opportunities that Fulham had today? Because I felt like they had a fair few chances. So is 1-1 a good result in your opinion after all these chances they had?
No, because I think we should be beating Fulham regardless. And it is worrying, like Ollie said, the amount of touches in our box they got shows the midfield wasn't. That's not the defensive's fault. That's they've won the ball far further up the pitch in the midfield, and perhaps the attack haven't done their job in stopping them getting to where they got to. Dragushin has done a couple of those similar clearances lately. Actually, he seems to have good awareness when he's back there and deep, and he seems to know where to be.
Yeah. So
yeah, he's played well last couple of games, but the amount of chances Roma had against us, the amount of chances Galatasaray had against us, the amount of chances Fulham today had against us, I'm not overly concerned about that, because Ange has come out and said other teams, and by its very nature, the football we play, other teams are going to get chances against us. They are. It's just if they can take them. And on the whole, we haven't defended badly, to be honest. But again, switched off today, players attracted to the ball, very similar to the Roma equaliser, where players got attracted to the ball. Nobody was with 2 or 3 of the Roma players at the back post. Very similar to me. People attracted to the ball, not thinking about what they're doing, not tracking players, and you get punished.
Yeah.
You could look. I've seen people say, "Our Conte team would have never let that happen." We did concede in the last minute. I can think of Southampton, the game before he got sacked. We drew 3-3. We did concede. There's nothing different here. We did concede goals. We've always conceded goals.
We've recorded these podcasts before.
I do feel like it's Groundhog Day, isn't it? Somebody said in the chat, like, you could just replace the names of the players and play this next year, this time next year, and it will probably be valid, because it is what we do. It's what we are. It's how we are. It's Tottenham. As Conte did say, that's the one thing he did say. The history of Tottenham is this. He's right.
Gary said very similar to what you said just now, Craig. He said that on Thursday. But my instant comeback to that was, it has to change at some point. Is it going to change under Ange?
No, because
Ollie don't seem that confident. Are you confident?
No, and look, let me just say, I'm 100% behind Ange, because, as I've said on here many times, I can't take another rebuild. We have to stick at some point. We have to stick with a manager. But we are always going to be like this. I can't see that changing until we have a squad of everybody in that squad is fighting for a first team place, which again, and the reason being, I can't see us ever getting to that point, because it's not what the board allow us to do. Then we're always going to be like this. It's as simple as that.
I have one point about kind of like the centre back pairing, right? I mean, we all can say that they've had a great performance today, and but you've been able to see them have a great performance because of the number of boxes Fulham had in the box. I want to zoom back out, and I think that a big part of the reason for that and why we looked gassed as well is that when we have Romero and Van de Ven, we build up play through Romero. I'm not going to talk about the offensive aspect of that yet because he hadn't been doing that well. We hadn't been getting that many through passes from Romero. But a big part of Romero and Van de Ven building up play is that oftentimes our centre backs end up close to the centre circle or around the halfway line. That compresses the pitch we need to cover. It also means that the defending team has to pack the box a lot. It also means that when Romero and Van de Ven are passing the ball back and forth, we don't like the pace of it, but the rest of the team gets a rest as well. When we are building up from the back with Ben Davies and Dragusin, they don't have the confidence to advance the ball. So a lot of the time, they're kind of like at the 1/3 mark of the field. That means that when we are trying to build up play from there, a lot of the build-up play falls on either the wing backs or it falls on Bissouma or Maddison. So I would say a lot of the factors that we're seeing from this game is also a result of the fact that we no longer have a centre-back pairing that's comfortable bringing the ball almost to the halfway line and starting our attack from there. We're starting attacks from the 1/3 line, and then we're relying on our width players and our midfielders to build up the attack from there, and they need to build up the attack through 2/3 of the pitch rather than half of the pitch. So there are many knock-on effects from that in terms of how much we need to run, in terms of how much we're defending, in terms of where we're losing the ball. If we play in the system, we could lose the ball and have to defend, and a lot of players need to run back. Whereas if we have Romero and Van de Ven, we're playing half the pitch, a lot more players can run back to defend if we lose the ball when they progress because they're losing the ball higher up the pitch.
Dustin, in your opinion, Will Lancashire came on in the 95th minute, and as I said at the start of the show, Archie Gray has got a dead leg, so he went off. Should Ange Postecoglou, should he have used someone like Will Lancashire earlier on in the game?
Will Lancashire is he's got a large stature for his age, but because he lacks experience, he's going to need a lot more than like 2 minutes to fashion a chance, right? So I think that it's I think the bigger criticism is not this game specifically, but it's more the kinds of rotations we do in the Europa League, in the cups. I'm not a fan of wholesale rotations where we change 8 players, 9 players. It's true that you get to rest a lot of the first team, but it means that Will Lancashire never develops a relationship with the rest of the first team. He always plays with other second stringers or squad players. And when you drop in this scenario, he doesn't develop the chemistry. He doesn't develop, Meadows doesn't know how he likes the ball. He doesn't know how he likes to run in a real game situation. So if you don't put him with first team players, he won't develop that relationship. You drop him in and they're like strangers, right? And then he's against the Premier League centre backs, not the cup centre backs or the FA Cup, Carabao Cup centre backs. So we need to bleed him into situations, not just against strong opposition, but also stronger teammates. So yeah, that's just my take on how we rotate.
As I mentioned, Spurs are currently 7th in the Premier League table, 20 points from 13 games. Bournemouth, who we play next, are in 13th, and they've got 18 points. They are just 2 points away from us, despite their league position. And then, of course, we face Chelsea on Sunday at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Last question for you all. Ollie, let's come to you first. How are you feeling ahead of these 2 very tough and important games? Away at Bournemouth Thursday night, at home against Chelsea on Sunday. 2 tough games. What changes do you think Ange Postecoglou will make, and how do you think we'll get on?
I'm not feeling good to start with for what you asked me first. I think Bournemouth's a really tough place to go. They turned over Man City and Arsenal there. And it's always been, I think, historically fairly tough for us. So I'm a bit worried about that. I'd like to see Kulusevski start from the off. I think that's a guaranteed that's going to happen, and hopefully we get Solanke back from illness this time. I don't know what's happening with Van der Ven and Romero. I assume that they're not going to be ready for the game. But other than that, there's not too many things that can change really. I just think we need to go as strong as possible, and I think we need to start as quickly as possible. I think we're too slow for these games, but usually when we drop points, we follow it up with a win. So I think we would rather not beat Bournemouth and beat Chelsea. I was at both Chelsea games last season. I went to home and away, and we lost both games. And God, they were awful, weren't they? And it just seems like every time we play Chelsea, they got our number, and I don't know what it is. Even when Chelsea are at their lowest ebb, they somehow find a way to beat us. I mean, that 4-1 last season, we should have won. And if we had 11 men, I think we would have won. It was so weird how that turned around. And then the 2-1 at Stamford Bridge, I preferred watching the 4-1. It was so depressing. So I don't have a good feeling about either game. I'm sorry. I think Spurs have just broken me down now. It's so weird because you were saying that a lot of people are losing confidence in Ange. And I think there's one week where everyone's singing, Big Ange Ball, the Robbie Williams Angel song. After the 4-0, we all loved him. After today, maybe we don't love him. It's a tough one, but it's so hard to keep the faith. I mean, if Ricky was here, he'd be like, the sun is shining, everything's great. Don't worry, guys. Ange's going to do it. But it is hard to keep that kind of optimism because, if you go to work one day and your boss says, you're doing a great job, well done. And then you come in the next day and he says, you're terrible, you're going to get sacked. You wouldn't be able to keep happy, would you? You wouldn't be able to have a smile. I think it's the same with Sporting Spurs. We need to be given a reason to be uplifted, and we're not really getting that at the moment. So, yeah.
Well, Bournemouth played extremely well yesterday at Molineux, beating Wolves 4-2. Really good display from them. Kluivert getting a hat-trick. All three of them penalties, a Premier League record. Today, Chelsea beat Aston Villa 3-0 at Stamford Bridge, a big result for them. And Chelsea seem to be on fire at the moment. Other results today, Manchester United 4, Everton 0. Of course, we face Manchester United very soon in the Carabao Cup quarter-final. And Liverpool beat the champions Manchester City. Another defeat for Pep Guardiola. Liverpool won 2-0. Craig, how are you feeling ahead of this next week, Thursday's game, Sunday's game?
Well, I'll give you a positive. We're actually a point nearer Manchester City after today. We should have been 3, of course. Probably been a point behind them, I think. I'm much the same as Ollie, to be honest. I'm not feeling good about either of these games. I think we'll do well to get a draw at Bournemouth. I do. I don't think we're going to beat them. And Chelsea, there is no way we're beating Chelsea. It just history tells us that they're like our kryptonite. As much as it really pains and hurts me to say it, because Christ, do we owe Chelsea one? We owe them more than one. We owe them about 50. It's just they're just our kryptonite. It's never going to happen. I just can't see it. And you saying about what's got to change, beating Chelsea and beating Liverpool at Anfield, that's the sort of thing that's got to change. But history tells me I just can't back us against them because of they just seem to have to just do a number on us, no matter what, no matter if they're playing crap, no matter if they've got injuries and we're at full strength. I just can't see it, and it really does hurt me to say that. But I think we'll be lucky to get a point out of the next 2 games. Sorry.
Bournemouth this season, Craig, despite their league position, like I said, 2 points away from us, they've played some super stuff so far this season, haven't
they? Yeah, exactly. And normally you'd say, look, Bournemouth is the sort of team we've got to go to, and that's the team we should be, sort of team we should be beating. I 100% agree. But when you look at who Bournemouth have beaten, how they're playing, if you actually sat and watched how they play, they're bloody dangerous. They really are. And if we're not on it, if we haven't got at least a near full strength team, they're going to turn us over.
Yeah.
And I never thought I'd say that, but it's true. And anybody thinks different, then you need to go away and have a look at how we're playing, how they're playing.
It's so hard to predict. I know Scott has just said here, don't have them predict scores, Chris. I don't know whether you want to give score predictions at the end or not, up to you. Dustin, how are you feeling ahead of this week? I say it's a tough week. It's going to be a very, very tough month.
Yeah. With the schedule the way it is, I think that I believe that's why Pulu was rested, because I believe that they are actually starting to try to preserve players so that they don't break down by Christmas, and then we're really playing Regulon and youth team players. For me, I think what's really hard to predict is because I don't know who's going to be fit. So it's impossible to give a prediction because, like, you get in here, you see the starting lineup, and Solanke's not in it. You're like, what predictions out of the water now? Another part about it is how teams play against us, because there are teams that change the way they play specifically against us because of our play style, and they know that if they try to possess the ball, it's unless they're at the top of the game, we can tear them apart. So most teams, even the teams that try to possess the ball, frequently against us, they don't do that because we are good at playing teams that play that way. Arsenal didn't try to possess the ball against us. They just played counter-attacking style. So I think that bearing all that in mind, it's almost impossible to predict because you don't know what our lineup is going to be and you don't know how the other team's going to choose to play against us.
Paddy writes here, Dustin, where can you see the next win coming from? I can't, if I'm honest. Where can you see us winning next?
What's the weakest team that we're up to play in the Europa League?
Rangers.
against the former Celtic manager. Well,
there's no easy games. Yeah, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. Do any of you want to do score predictions, or should we break a habit of a lifetime and not do them?
I'll do it.
Go on.
I do predictions quite a lot. I'm actually quite good at them. I'll do what for Chelsea and Bournemouth?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to say 1. It's tough. I'm going to say 1-1 again, Bournemouth, Spurs. I hope it doesn't come true. And Spurs, Chelsea. Oh, it's so tough. I feel like, 2-1 Chelsea. I wish I wasn't a doom bringer, but
well, yeah.
Screw it.
What about you, Craig? Do you want to give some predictions or give it a miss?
No, I'll put my head on the block. I'll try and be a little bit positive. I think we'll be lucky to get a 2-2 draw against Bournemouth, but I expect us to lose that. But I can't see us beating Chelsea. I think they're going to beat us 3-1.
Wow. Dustin?
2-2 Bournemouth, 3-1 Spurs.
Oh, I love it. Ending 3-1 Spurs, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We usually beat the big teams, to be fair. So.
We're ending on a positive. Thank you, Dustin.
If they try to possess the ball against us, we'll just rip them apart.
I know this is one of Craig's most favourite parts of the podcast, where we ask people or all the viewers where they're watching the podcast from around the world. So whilst I go and ask the guests where you can find them on social media, if you'd like to tell us where you're watching from, that would be great. Ollie, thank you so much for coming back. Pleasure having you here. Tell everyone where they can find you on social media, what you're up to with the Daily Mirror at the moment.
Very busy with the Mirror. Writing lots about Spurs, all the London teams really, Arsenal, Chelsea, and we do a lot about Man United, Liverpool, just doing lots of stories at the moment. I'm also working for The Athletic. I've got a weekly column for The Athletic. I've started doing a bit of bits and pieces for them. I told you a lot about a book I was writing with my dad. So my dad's written this book called Career Catalyst. I've got it right here. Here you go.
That's it. Give it a good plug, yes.
There you go. So it's out on Amazon now. It's called Career Catalyst. It's basically a Bible for young kids who come out of uni, or maybe you're in your first job. It's a step-by-step career guide, how to find your job, impress at an interview, do well when you get into the company. If your boss is being horrible to you, it's going to tell you how to deal with your boss. So it's really good. If you know anybody who's started their career or early in their careers, you've got kids, relatives, recommend this book. It's on Amazon. You can get it for 99p ebook or 10.99 paperback, which is this. And it's a really good read. I recommend it. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Best of luck with that, Ollie. And on social media, Ollie?
Social media, I'm on Twitter. I don't tweet much these days. I'm more of a lurker. I just sort of read everyone's stuff. But I'm on the screen and I'm on Insta. Yeah, give me a follow. I'm always keen to chat.
Thank you so much, Ollie. Look forward to having you on again very soon. Craig, thank you so much as always. Where can people find you?
Yeah, no worries, Chris. Yeah, at Dearman9 on X. I think I've got another one now, actually, at Craig, Spurs Chat Craig, actually. It's a new one. You might want to give me a follow on that. I haven't got enough room to put it on the screen now. So at Spurs Chat Craig. But yeah, thanks, Chris. Hate coming on after a draw. I just feel like I lost, doesn't it, today? It's weird. It's weird.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Yeah, again. But yeah, brighter times are coming. Nearly Christmas.
Do you use the hashtag frustrated, though? That's what I want to know.
I should really, shouldn't I? Yeah, that's my should be my handle, shouldn't it? After at Dearman, I should be hashtag frustrated. Yeah.
Dustin, thank you so much for coming on, and thank you so much for ending the podcast on a positive by saying that Spurs are going to beat Chelsea 3-1 next Sunday. I'm certainly hoping that I'll be sitting here with a big smile on my face next Sunday. But of course, a smile would be nice on Thursday as well against Bournemouth. Thank you so much for coming back. Pleasure having you here. Look forward to having you on again soon. Where can people find you?
They can find me at Luminor Coming with Spurs. I have to approve you because I don't know why porn bots have started adding me every time. So yeah, just follow me. I promise I'll approve it.
Dustin, thank you so much. Craig, Dustin, Ollie, thank you for your time. You've been great. Thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks for listening, and we will see you on the next edition of the Spurs Chat podcast. Come on, you Spurs.